gentlemen, so welcome to our weekend special video, and this is coming to you from Washington Memorial, probably one of the most memorable sites you will see on like big movies, especially like Forrest Gump, like that site right there. And so yeah, it's a beautiful weather. Actually, it's not cold today, surprisingly. It's been freezing for a while now. So today I wanted to discuss with you the timing of childbirth. Like, when will you be able to conceive a child? And what are the things that you need to look for? And there's one thing that is like absolutely most important. Without it, you cannot ever have children come into your life. Without their blessings, without their transit, you cannot do it. So we're going to be discussing those things, and there's a reason why I'm making this video today, and I'm going to explain that too. But in case if you do not know what your planetary alignments are, what your ascendant is, you know, all your planetary details, so you can see how childbirth will happen in your horoscope, what timing for that, check out the links here. Check out my full astrological report, including my books, Astrology, Conjunction, and Aspects at the Speed of Light, including all my consultations at this link here. So let's get started with childbirth. So, ladies and gentlemen, the question of childbirth. First of all, why am I making this video? The reason why I'm making this video is because I took off the actual childbirth consultation from my website, where I would tell people, you know, like what the best time period to conceive a child, you know, how many, and if it's going to be a male or female. And then last week, after getting these two consultations, or which I didn't do actually, I actually refunded these people. I decided to take that consultation off because one of these people, I'm sure they're watching this too, and I don't care, because they clearly said, well, my wife is pregnant and I want to know if I will have a boy. I need to have a boy. I do not want a girl. Right there and then I knew that many people are taking advantage of this knowledge to themselves, and they're kind of like, I just felt like quite ashamed and disgusted at that a person who is having a child, where people are spending millions of dollars to have children through hundreds and thousands. I know one of my good friends, you know, they spent six figures to have a child, and yet here you have a wife and a healthy child who's coming, and yet you only want it to be a boy. Right there and then I knew it was time to hang the banner for childbirth consultation. So, and then I had another individual who says, I've had enough of girls, I only want boy. Let me know what I need to do to have a boy. How can I have a boy? My family is asking me to give them a boy. And these are all people from India, which I know where the culture is dominated by wanting to have boys. But I just wonder if these people ever think in their mind, number one, what if this entire country of India, where they only want boys, what if everybody had a boy? Then what are you going to do? Where are you going to find a wife for them? Who are they going to go out with when they're teenagers? That's a great movie script. Number two, a girl is a human, just like a boy. And me being a father to two girls, when I hear these kind of nonsense now, it just pisses me off. Absolutely pisses me off when I run into these kind of morons. So that's why I took off this consultation. So now I'm just simply wanting to help all the people who may not be able to get a consultation from me on this subject to literally determine it on their own, when this is the time to conceive a child, when is the time to, you know, the child coming in your life or giving birth to a child. So let's discuss that, okay? So when I'm looking at children and their timing, okay, and this is actually the way I do my consultations too. What I do is I look at the fifth house and the fifth lord, because fifth house is a house of children, okay? I look at the ninth house and the ninth lord, which is what? fifth from the fifth, bhavad bhavam of the fifth house. So ninth house becomes important regarding childbirth. And then I look at planetary placements from your moon, the moon chart that you get on my report on the second page. So that I also look at that. I look at fifth and ninth house from there. Then I have to look at Jupiter. Jupiter is the significator of children, because Jupiter is a significator of the second, fifth, ninth, and 11th house. And Jupiter is known as a Jivakarka, meaning planet that gives life. All the life that you see around me, walking, talking, laughing, enjoying, is Jupiter. So we have to look at Jupiter. Then we have to go deeper. We have to look at your Saptamsa chart, which is a divisional chart in Vedic astrology related to your children and the fruits of your fifth house, fruits of your labor of the marriage. So that's what Saptamsa is. Saptamsa is not just children. Literally what you will create with your spouse is what the Saptamsa is. And so how do you see when your children will be coming? First of all, we're going to use this timetable known as Vimshotri Mahadashas, which I think in your report will be on the page 40 or 50th page. It'll say on the top Vimshotri Dashas, which are planetary time periods, which are 10 years, 6 years, 16 years, 20-year period of planets. And I've made enough videos on that. So what you want to see is the Mahadasha supporting children. The major period of having children, is it being supported? So if you're going through, let's say, Venus Mahadasha, you want to see, is Venus giving me children in this time period? How can you see that? Well, Venus either has to be a fifth lord, ninth lord, be aspected by the fifth lord, ninth lord, or Jupiter. And Venus should be aspecting the fifth or ninth lord in the birth chart first. If it doesn't promise in the birth chart, you can go to the divisional chart. So that's the first way to determine if the Mahadasha Lord will be giving us children. Then you go to the Antradasha Lord, which is known as Bhukti, the sub-period. And sub-period runs for anywhere from like literally 6 months to 3 years, 2 years sub-period, depending upon the length of the major period. Like usually in Venus and Saturn period, which are 19 and 20 year period cycle, you will have sub-period of planets giving a little bit of like controlling 2 to 3 years, year and a half at least in their Antradasha. Okay, that's a sub-period in Vedic astrology. So here, you want to see if the sub-period is a period of the fifth lord, ninth lord, or being aspected by fifth or ninth lord, or the sign Jupiter. I mean, not sign Jupiter, Jupiter itself. And so that's where you know, okay, this is Maha and Antradasha is now promising me children. But there are many Maha and Antradasha that you can run into regarding children. Okay? Many of them can show, like you can have majority of your planets in the fifth house and ninth house. So that means every Maha and Antradasha is going to want to give you children. But how do you determine that this is the Maha and Antradasha for having children? The way you want to assess this is by this most important factor, which is the transit of Jupiter, Saturn, and even Mars. First of all, I made a video on Jupiter and Saturn double transit. They have to, their transit is always responsible for the majority of the things that we experience in our life. Like marriage, promotions, children, buying a house, selling a house, anything that comes in our life is through Jupiter and Saturn. So you have to look at if Jupiter and Saturn transit, like their transit must aspect and influence the fifth lord, ninth lord, fifth house, ninth house, or Jupiter. Their yearly transit must do that while you're running through the Maha and Antradasha of your planet, of your time cycle. Once this happens, that's when you know that 9 to or 10 month period, 10 to 11 month period is a period where you can conceive a child and have a child. Then you look at Mars. Why Mars transit becomes important? Because Mars represents Bhumi, land. It is the earth. It is coming onto the earth, coming onto the land. So what in a symbolic way, a child when it comes out of the womb, it's now on land. it is now on earth to reap its karma, to build new karma. So Mars itself should influence the fifth, ninth house, fifth or ninth lord. And this is where you can see, okay, child will be born. Then you want to also confirm this on your Saptamsa chart. If it also confirms in the Saptamsa chart, that becomes a double strong, like a double strong indication that you will be having children in this time. But what you also want to do is look at the chart of your spouse or the person you're trying to have children with. If they are also running through the similar period, most definitely you will have children. Now, one thing obviously I will not be discussing is a combination of who will not have children, okay? Because there's time when you will go through a perfect period, everything is matching, you're not having children, but that's where the basics of astrology and advance of astrology comes into play, where you want to see, will this person is destined to have children? And obviously, even in my consultation when I did this, I never said that to people. I had many people who won't have children, but then I simply even described in my childbirth consultation, I will not tell you if you will or will not have children. Just like my marriage consultation, if you read, I don't tell people if they will or will not get married. And I clearly just put that as a disclaimer. So I get people who probably will never get married, but I never tell them this. I simply tell them the time period that is suited for their chart to have a marriage or children. So this is something that's very important, that is one of my principles. Now, once you have determined this, that okay, everything is right, okay, you know you're going to have children, besides the fact that, you know, there are people who will not, the time to conceive a child has to be within the period when Jupiter and Saturn are pointing to those points, the key points to have children. And that's where you'll be able to conceive a child and have a child. Because Jupiter and Saturn, most of the time, will have to point and do point to a certain house for at least a year. Because Jupiter will transit for and influence a single sign for 1 year. Saturn with his aspect and placement will influence a sign for 2.5, even longer if it's retrograde. So at least 1 year period becomes that period where you can conceive a child for 3 months. Within that 3 months, you can try and conceiving a child, which should be a very fun time period. But after that, the 9 months will be where the child's being baked in the oven. And then the cookie will come out, so you can hug and kiss the cookie. So that's how you look at it. Now comes the challenge of, will it be a boy or girl? Will it be a, or how many children will I have? The determination of this has to be judged from birth chart and Saptamsa chart. Obviously, people know that there are male planets, there are female planets. That's the basic of astrology. There are male signs and female signs. So you have to know that. This is like Astrology 98, Astrology 99, 101, okay? And so this is where you have to know what is being influenced on the 5th house, okay? And for the first 3 children, okay, you're gonna have to look at the 5th house. So 5th house becomes the first child, 7th house becomes the second child, 9th house becomes the third child. So these are your first 3 children in your life. If you're gonna have more, just go third from each planet, because from the 5th house or the 5th house, 7th house is the sibling of the first child, okay? So that's where you want to see what planet signs are influencing it to determine the sex. So like Sun, Jupiter, Mars, okay? And Ketu represents a boy, where Moon, Venus, Saturn, Mercury will most likely give you a girl, including Rahu. And then you want to look at the feminine and masculine sign, like Aries, okay? Leo, Libra, Sagittarius, Aquarius become all these masculine signs. Then Taurus, Cancer, Virgo, Scorpio, Capricorn, Pisces, feminine sign. Then Gemini and Yeah, Gemini is a neutral sign where you do not know if you're going to get a boy or girl. You can have twins with Gemini. Also, I forgot to say, Mercury and Saturn become planets which are neutered. They do not show you what sex the child will be. You have to see the association of Mercury and Saturn with other planets and signs to see how are they being influenced. So if Saturn is a masculine sign without any aspect in the 5th house, then you know there would be a boy. Then you have to look at the Saptamsa chart, which is a divinal chart related to children. Then you want to see the 5th house, 7th house, 9th house there. But then your spouse may dominate your chart. Because if their 5th house is more powerful than yours, their 5th house will dominate yours. So if your 5th house shows all children, their 5th house shows all female, and they're much more stronger than your 5th house, which is judged through Shadbala, you will have a female child. That's it. And that's how you determine the timing of children, sex of children, and how many will actually be determined by the amount of planets in your 5th house, but also the degrees. And this is why it's the most difficult thing to tell somebody if you're going to have 19 children, 2 children, or 3 children. But sometimes I have seen where people have 3 planets, 3 masculine planets in the 5th house, and they end up having three boys. But then you'll have no planets in the 5th house. 5th Lord is alone. The person's still having 4 children. This is all due to the degree where the 5th Lord is placed and the nakshatra that the 5th Lord is in, which is very difficult to determine. You have to be an excellent, extreme expert to see this, because certain nakshatras will represent certain amount of children. Okay? So guys, this is my analysis of childbirth in Vedic astrology. Hopefully this has helped to the people who were planning to get a consultation, but now you can't. So I'm just helping you guys out, because I lost my taste when I ran into such people, which I knew existed, but when they came to me suddenly, and I was getting a little bit of that before, it was like time to end this. So anyway, if you're new to my channel, subscribe below. And if you want to know where your planetary placements are, all my books and my career and marriage consultation, which are still there, for that check out the links here. Otherwise, we'll see you later. Bye bye from DC.